So, thank you, Marta, for having this conversation. We seem a little far apart, actually. We met in Los Angeles. Just before I started at Wesleyan, I went over to Marta and Michael's home, and I'll always remember because when I came in, you looked behind me and you said, "Where's the rest of the entourage?" And I thought, how Hollywood, how and so I thought we'd start off by you saying a little bit about how you became a television writer from starting off as a theater major or having education in theater and writing as a student.
I don't know. We after college moved to New York and did the thing that you can do only when you're in your 20s. Starved and worked in restaurants and tried to write musical theater. And after a number of years of doing that and having some stuff in some off-Broadway shows, then having our own off-Broadway show, we were writing the musical version of the movie Arthur. We'd always been told that it takes 7 years for a Broadway show to get on. And we had been, while our off-Broadway show was running, an agent came and she said, "Why aren't you guys doing television?" And we went, and we decided that we were giving it that last 7th year, and if it didn't happen, then we would consider doing television. We were completely unprepared for what television writing is, but we were kind of self-taught. I mean, we learned a lot about theater in college, and the only difference between theater and television is you don't get to do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. You do it once and you shoot it, and then you get to sort of fix it in editing. We, at that point, called this agent and said, "Okay, we're ready." And she went, "Now?" And we said, yeah, it's time. We moved out to LA, worked for Norman Lear for a while, developing television, and then made our way into development.
Now, is the ensemble's situation comedy for you something like a musical comedy? I mean, are there some similarities in the challenges of writing such pieces?
You know, what's similar is you get to listen to the audience. When you do a multi-camera show like Friends, you perform in front of a live audience, and they tell you if it's funny or not. If they're laughing, then you're in good shape, and if they're not, then you better rewrite quickly. And generally, they're right. Sometimes it was a very smart audience, and they'd laugh to the setup of a joke and not the joke. And only once were they a very, very wrong audience. It was an episode, actually, that David and I wrote. It was election night. I can't remember what year it was. Ann Richards had just lost, and it was raining. And comedy and rain don't mix, and comedy and Ann Richards losing apparently don't mix, because the audience was silent the entire night. They didn't laugh at a single joke. And we kept wondering, is it the episode? And it turned out, no, it was just a really depressed group of people.
Now I know what my excuse will be. But I always thought in television that when, like here at Wesleyan, when the jokes don't work, you just hold up a sign that says laugh and...
We never did that.
Laugh?
No, never held up the sign. Never held up the sign. And we actually, the only time we used a real laugh track was when, the only time... There it is. The only time we used a laugh track was when we shot something not in front of a live audience. What we would do was smooth out the laughs, because very often you would have 2 takes, and the audience would be laughing in one and laughing less in the other, so you'd kind of smooth it out. But no signs. No signs.
Did 1 or 2 of the characters come to you guys first? I mean, did you start off with a couple or with an anti-couple and then move out, or did you have always this notion of a group of that size?
Here's what happened. We had just finished doing a series for HBO called Dream On. And that was a show where the main character was in every scene. And that was brutal for him, and therefore for us. And we decided we wanted to do an ensemble comedy, so there wouldn't be that kind of pressure on any single actor. And the next thing that came to us was the notion of that time in your life after college when your friends are your family. And it's, I'm sitting here thinking about my daughter graduating tomorrow, and this is that point. She's about to enter the point where we started writing. And it's an extraordinary time in your life when there's a great deal of growing and identity searching. So that was the next step. Then was the coffee. And the characters were a combination of things. They didn't come in any particular order. There was an actor who we had seen the year before, and we were doing a different pilot, and his voice kind of stayed in our head. And on the other hand, that was the character of Ross. My writing partner, David, had some similar characteristics. I'm not going to say I'm as neurotic as Monica, but there are those times. And then we sort of looked around. At that point, we were no longer in our 20s, but we were sort of looking at the people that we did know in our 20s and started pulling bits and pieces from the people we knew, and also from the people we knew when we were in our 20s, because that doesn't change. The basic personality types don't change.
Right. What was the most surprising thing that happened for you in writing the show and seeing its success? I mean, were there particular episodes or reactions from fans that stand out for you as particularly surprising?
There were a few things. One is that I had a job for 10 years. That was pretty surprising out in television. I guess there was a time when we had, it was right after 9/11, and we flew out a group of people, survivors of the attacks on the Twin Towers, and them talking about the experience of coming out there and what that meant to them was surprising. We just thought we were, here, have a trip, right. and the experience for them of being able to laugh. That was pretty surprising to us. The fact that I remember the first season, we were going somewhere as a family, we're in the airport, and I looked over at one of those newsstands, and one of them was on every cover, and I kept thinking, how'd that happen? There were many surprising things. The other surprising thing I have to say was something I learned about writing, which was that after a while, the show takes on a life of its own, and you stop telling it what to do, and it begins to tell you where it wants to go. So that was pretty surprising too.
I remember visiting you once, and there was a whole team of writers or others who were creating a film project. And I guess one of the things that's so different for the kind of writing one does in television from the kind of writing that happens at a place like Wesleyan is that it's so team-based, and that you have to learn not just to write something and show it to a professor or two, but you're writing something with a whole group of people. And I don't think that happens very often in a university setting. And I wonder, was that a difficult transition or a great relief to actually be writing in a group?
That's the best. That's the best. You get to work with, at the end we had a staff of writers, 12 writers besides us, and you get to work with incredibly smart, funny people all day long. It's really fun. I realized there was one more very, very surprising thing. As you know, I graduated from Brandeis University, and the president of Brandeis was visiting, and we were on stage, we had an office on the stage, and we're having a conversation about something incredibly profound, I guess. And all of a sudden, my office door opens, Matthew Perry runs in and pulls down his pants.
Didn't happen when I went.
That was surprising. Not that he pulled down his pants, but that it happened right then.
Wow. Just adds another clause to our insurance policy for doing visits. So tell us a little bit about more recent projects. So you were working on a history-based project that I know you were very passionate about, and maybe you can share with us something about that.
I just, a couple years ago, finished a documentary called Blessed is the Match, The Life and Death of Hannah Senesh. Hannah Senesh was a poet and a diarist who participated in the only attempt to rescue Jews behind enemy lines. At that point, she was very young. She was 22 years old. She had left Hungary to go to Palestine, and she joined a group of other people from Palestine who were trained by the British. And they parachuted into Yugoslavia, and the idea was to rescue the Jews that were left in Hungary, because it was the only place Hitler had yet to go into. It was the last country that he went into. In the 5 days it took for them to get from Yugoslavia to Hungary, Hitler went in, she was captured. Her whole point was to go in and rescue her mother. Her mother had no idea she was there. And she was arrested. Her mother was brought in for questioning. They kept asking her mother, where is she, where is she, where is she? Do you know where your daughter is? And she kept saying, she's in Palestine. Then they brought a woman in who was beaten and missing teeth, and she barely recognized her own daughter. For the next period of time, they were both in prison, and they couldn't speak, but they were across a courtyard from each other. So they would look through the window to each other, and they would sign to each other so that they could communicate somehow. She was ultimately executed when she was 23 years old. And if you ever have the opportunity to read her poetry, it's not only magnificent, the idea that these words came from someone as young as she is pretty extraordinary. And the woman who directed the film, Roberta Grossman, did a magnificent job. And it's a wonderful film. I'm very proud of it.
And did you first get turned on to the subject matter through the poetry, or was it someone who made you aware of the kind of that dramatic encounter of mother and daughter across the courtyard? How did you first become involved in the project?
I grew up reading her poetry and her diaries, and then Roberta came to me when she told me the mother-daughter aspect. As a mother, that has to grab your heart. And to me, it seemed like an incredible way to tell the story and have it be more than another Holocaust story. And there's so many to tell. It gave it a very specific point of view, which is really what got me.
So, mother-daughter stories. Here you've been involved in education, both from Brandeis and then at the Oakwood School in the Los Angeles area, and now seeing your daughter here at Wesleyan. What is your perspective as a parent on Wesleyan education?
Our daughter said, I think the last time we were here, something really interesting about her experience here. She said that she's definitely leaving smarter than she was when she came. But I think it's a really interesting comment. I don't know that everybody would say that. People might say they learned things, right, but that she found a way to use her mind and have it expand and grow in such an extraordinary circumstance. I mean, I'm pretty blown away by her experience here and our experience here, and walking around and meeting the other students, and just the breadth of interests among the students. And when we were looking at schools, we went to about 6 schools. She definitely wanted a small liberal arts school. And honestly, we walked on the campus, and pretty much as soon as we got here, we both had the sense that this would be the place for her. And thank God it was, because it was the only place she applied.
And what program was this that expanded her mind and deepened her potential for creativity and thoughtfulness?
It happens to be one that your wife is involved in.
The College of Letters, also of Joe Finn's. Extraordinary.
The College of Letters. Are you going to be a doctor then?
Well, it is a very creative family. Michael, of course, your husband, is a composer and musician. And I know your son is also a musician.
Jazz drummer.
Jazz drummer. And so I'm delighted that the experience here has been one where you've seen not just creativity enhanced, but people getting smarter, I think it sounds like a new thing we put on the website. Wesleyan, people not getting dumber or something. So what's next for you?
What's next for me? I'm working on a documentary, another comedy, Rape in the Military. We're examining what's been going on in the military, and that 1 in 3 women are either sexually abused or raped by their brothers in arms. So that is the next documentary I'm working on, and I'm working on several pilot areas, and don't know, you never know. I mean, you throw a bunch of stuff up in the air, maybe something sticks.
Were documentaries something you had wanted to do for a while, or is this a new?
Never wanted to do it. And
So it's all the money in documentaries.
Oh yes, that's what it is. It's the great success. Actually, what was fascinating to me, and this is sort of the lesson I learned leaving musical theater and going to television, telling a story is telling a story. And when I watched the first rough cut of Blessed is the Match, I came to it as, how do you tell this story? And here are my thoughts on how you can tell the story in a way that will be compelling. The lessons are the same in every genre that I've had the pleasure of working in.
I think that's such an important point for us, actually. We sometimes talk about how to describe the Wesleyan experience in a way that would work for the College of Letters, or for the biology department, or for the religion department, or for music. And sometimes we think that increasing a person's capacity to tell their stories the way they want to is a way that captures many of the things that happens here. That you find out how to weave the things you care about into a coherent whole that you can share with someone else. And I hope we're doing that for our students.
Well, it's actually my theory about college, that college is not where you go to learn how to be what you're going to become professionally one day, but it's where you learn to be a human being. And the only way to do that is to widen the scope.
Well, on that note, widening the scope and teaching us how to be the human beings we are meant and want to be, I want to thank you, and to thank you all for coming today.